Welcome back to our exploration of Bryan Johnson's extraordinary quest to extend human life. In part 1, we examined his methodological approach to longevity, including the assembly of a 30-doctor team, his sophisticated biological monitoring systems, and his controversial plasma exchange experiment with his father and son. We ended as Bryan set his sights on something even more ambitious, modifying the very blueprint of life itself through gene therapy. This is where our journey continues. In the second part, we will dive deep into Bryan's million-dollar gene therapy experiment, explore the shocking decision to deliberately break his own legs, and uncover the philosophical framework driving his entire approach. The algorithm he believes could lead to practical immortality. The experiments we are about to examine push the boundaries of what most people consider possible or even reasonable in the pursuit of a longer life. Yet, when we look closely at the science and methodology behind them, we discover a fascinating perspective on human potential and the future of aging itself. Let's begin. Bryan's gene therapy experiment was one of the boldest ventures in the quest to hack aging. Rather than modifying one of his existing genes, a move fraught with irreversible risk, Bryan opted for a safer, more controlled strategy. He introduced a novel, synthetic gene designed to enhance cellular repair and boost antioxidant production, but with a crucial twist. This gene came equipped with an off switch, allowing it to be deactivated instantly if any adverse reactions emerged. This built-in safety mechanism meant that should the intervention prove too disruptive, he could simply shut it down and return to baseline. The procedure itself was a high-stakes gamble, both scientifically and financially. Each session came with an exact price tag of $250,000 over the course of the experiment, spanning 5 meticulously planned sessions and encompassing not only the gene editing process, but also the comprehensive real-time monitoring systems and rigorous safety protocols. The total cost amounted to be $1.2 million. In a field where clinical trials can span years and cost millions, Bryan's willingness to invest such a sum underscored his singular commitment to accelerating the path toward longevity. The result: in the weeks following the intervention, Bryan's state-of-the-art biomarker tracking painted a nuanced picture. On the bright side, certain markers, especially those associated with cellular repair and reduced oxidative stress, did show modest improvements. His system registered a measurable uptick in repair enzyme activity and a slight dip in specific inflammatory signals, suggesting that the new gene was performing its intended function. However, these gains were far from the dramatic rejuvenation he had envisioned. Key indicators like overall metabolic efficiency and mitochondrial function remained largely unchanged, leaving Bryan with the sobering realization that tampering with the fundamental code of life is an immensely intricate challenge. The experiment served as both a proof of concept and a reality check. While introducing a synthetic, controllable gene can yield incremental benefits, its capacity to meaningfully reset the aging clock remains a distant promise. Ultimately, Bryan's gene therapy trial underscored the sobering truth that extending human life through genetic intervention is as much a financial and technical balancing act as it is a scientific breakthrough. But why break his own legs? At first glance, intentionally fracturing one's legs might seem like a reckless act for someone dedicated to extending life, yet Bryan Johnson's philosophy has always been about pushing every conceivable boundary, testing not only the limits of medical interventions but also the inherent resilience of the human body. Instead of shying away from a controlled injury, he deliberately induced fractures in his legs to simulate a worst-case scenario for tissue damage. This wasn't self-destruction, it was a calculated experiment designed to put his regenerative protocols under the most extreme conditions, challenging his body's capacity to heal and ultimately validating his don't die principle. The result: In the days following the injury, Bryan's sophisticated monitoring systems recorded a dramatic activation of his body's repair mechanisms. His meticulously orchestrated treatment regime, which combined state-of-the-art anti-inflammatory therapies, targeted nutritional support, and a bespoke physical rehabilitation protocol, triggered a robust healing cascade. Biomarkers associated with tissue repair surged, circulating stem cell levels and growth factor concentrations spiked, indicating that his body had mobilized its full regenerative arsenal. Remarkably, his legs began to mend at a rate that far exceeded conventional recovery timelines, with functional mobility and strength returning at a pace that both surprised and validated his experimental approach. In essence, his radical, self-inflicted experiment was a profound demonstration that with precise, evidence-based interventions, even the most severe injuries can catalyze an accelerated healing process. It wasn't about coating harm, it was about harnessing the body's latent potential to regenerate and adapt under duress. Bryan's leg-breaking experiment thus provided compelling evidence that, when executed with rigor and transparency, extreme challenges can unlock new avenues for understanding and potentially extending human life. So when you break down his entire method, it's actually an incredibly systematic approach. Identify potential interventions from scientific literature, evaluate evidence quality and risk factors, design detailed monitoring protocols, test carefully with constant data collection, continue what works, immediately stop what doesn't. It's like he's turned himself into a living laboratory where every intervention is carefully tested and measured. Sure, it might seem extreme, but there's a rigorous scientific method behind every decision. So what exactly drives Bryan's entire approach? He's developed what he calls his core algorithm, 3 fundamental principles that guide everything he does. Let's break these down because they are fascinating. The don't die principle. Think about this. Bryan says if you were playing a video game with just one life, no saves, no respawns, what would be your absolute first priority? Not dying, right? He applies this same logic to real life. It becomes the foundation of everything. Every decision gets filtered through, will this help me not die? Health isn't just about living better, it's about survival. Even small risks need to be carefully evaluated. Everything else becomes secondary to staying alive. The autonomous self principle. This is where things get really interesting. Bryan believes in what he calls autonomous self, basically taking complete control of your own biology. Here's what this means. You are not just a passenger in your body, you are the pilot. Every biological process can be measured and optimized. Your body is a system that can be upgraded and improved. Traditional aging isn't inevitable, it's a technical problem to solve. But here's where it gets mind-bending. The autonomous self isn't just about current control, it's about extending your life long enough to reach what scientists call escape velocity. Here's the concept. Medical technology is advancing exponentially. If you can live long enough, you might reach a point where new life-extending technologies emerge faster than you age. Each advancement buys you time to reach the next breakthrough. Eventually, this could lead to practical immortality. Third principle, Zeroism. This is Bryan's most philosophical principle and it's fascinating. Zeroism is about starting from absolute first principles, questioning everything we assume about human life and aging, rebuilding our understanding from scratch, making decisions based purely on data and evidence. Think of it like this. Instead of accepting that people just get old and die, Zeroism asks, why do we age? Can we stop it? What if everything we believe about aging is wrong? These 3 principles work together like this. Don't die gives you the prime directive. Autonomous self gives you the method. Zeroism gives you the framework for thinking. This creates what Bryan calls his operating system, a complete approach to extending human life that, first, prioritizes survival above all else, second, takes active control of biological processes, third, questions basic assumptions about what's possible, four, uses data to make decisions, and number five, last, aims for not just longer life but potential immortality. The really fascinating part, Bryan isn't just philosophizing, he is actually testing this algorithm with his own body and life. Every supplement, every treatment, every protocol flows from these three principles. It's like he is running a massive experiment to answer one question: can we hack the code of human mortality? And while many people think this is crazy, his argument is simple. If there is even a small chance of achieving practical immortality, isn't it worth trying to live long enough to find out? Thank you for watching part 2 of my exploration into Bryan Johnson's extreme longevity experiments. We have covered his remarkable gene therapy experiment, the shocking decision to deliberately break his own legs, and his algorithm, all in pursuit of extending human lifespan. In part 3, we will reveal something even more fascinating: exactly how Johnson turned his extreme experiments into $1 million business, and the surprising results of protocol that you might actually be able to apply to your own life. I will break down which elements of his approach actually work according to the data and which might be nothing more than expensive placebos. And perhaps most intriguingly is what Johnson really doing not for money as he claims. We will examine the evidence behind his stated motivations and the business empire he is building around longevity. If you found this information valuable, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Part 3 will be released next week, so make sure you have clicked the notification bell to be alerted when it goes live. Have questions about anything covered in this video? Drop them in the comments below and I will do my best to address them. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the final chapter of this fascinating journey where we separate the science from the hype in Bryan Johnson's quest for immortality.